When Monty asked the grown-ups if he could please have a pet, they smiled and said, "Why, Monty, that's your best idea yet." They thought perhaps a kitten or a rabbit or a dog, a guinea pig, a budgie or a parrot or a frog, so they were quite surprised when he peeped around the door and told them what he wanted was his own pet dinosaur. A pterodon, perhaps, they asked. Triceratops are cool, but smaller reptiles are more easily house-trained. As a rule, stegosaurs are friendly, depending on the sex. "Oh no," said Monty, "I've decided I'd most like a T-Rex. I've read about the daily walks and other important factors, but on the whole, of all the groups of lizards, I like raptors." So off they went to Saws R Us to choose, and it took ages, walking miles past rows and rows of brontosauruses in cages. Special tanks contained some fierce sharks called megalodon. The first had quite a few, but then the last had only one. "Perhaps he's on his own because he is the very best." "Oh no," said Monty, "it's 'cause he's eaten all the rest." An arrow on the wall sent them in a new direction, through some heavy doors into the giant reptile section. There, staff were shining lights on dino eggs to help to hatch them. Others stood to one side wearing steel gloves, trying to catch them. Monty laughed at a baby running up and down like mad. Then it jumped upon his arm and squeaked, "The dinosaur for Dad." Monty stroked the scales upon the lizard's neck and said, "This is the dinosaur for me. I'm going to call him Ted." So off they went to pay for Ted, where the lady at the till suggested special food for him to stop from getting ill. They bought some polished forest scales and oil for underneath, together with a bristle brush, 'cause Ted had lots of teeth, which meant some nights they didn't sleep when the dinosaur was teething, and lots of lizard pole to help him with his breathing. Ted and Monty were best friends, which everyone hoped would last, except for the amount of things he ate and the fact he grew so fast. He turned over once a bit too quick and broke the end of the bed. Then there was a day he accidentally bit off the postman's head. Gran used all her spare wool up to knit a winter pulley, and Monty noticed he no longer had any bother with pulleys. The only problem that they had, the only thing to spoil it, was the frequency and amount of Teddy's visits to the It hadn't been so bad when he was just a little chappy, although a crane and truck was used to take away his nappy. But soon he moved to solids. There were bigger and bigger dumps. The real problem, however, was the power of his trumps. He blew away the garden fence, he blew away the shed, he nearly blew away poor Monty, turned and blew the car away instead. This situation couldn't last. The neighbours began to talk, especially when Monty took Ted to the park for a walk. Ted ate the trees, he ate the dogs, he even ate the birds and frogs, he ate the swings, he broke the slide, he chased a lady back inside a car. But then he heard a noise. Above the screaming girls and boys, up went his head. Lizard eyes were glistening. Tipped on one side, you could tell that he was listening. Then suddenly he gave a roar which deafened 40 people, maybe more, and then he was off. A T-Rex does 30 miles an hour when it gets up to speed. At about 29, Monty had to let go of the lead and watched as Ted ran off, right over the fields, crossed the motorway, horns blew and there were squeals of tyres as the buses and trucks started skidding. Soon Ted had run so far that he was hidden from Monty's sight. Poor boy. He waited well into the night, but of his best friends there was not a squeak, even though every hour he gave a peek round the curtains. "I'm certain," he said, "that quite soon he'll be back, snuggled up in what's left of my room." Since he flat-packed the wardrobe with a slip of the claw and took out the wall trying to get through the door, but days turned to weeks without sign of Big Ted. Monty still called for him just before bed. "Oh, Teddy, I'd just like to think you're all right, 'cause lizards need warm and it gets cold at night." Then faintly there came, like a rumble of thunder, tearing the peace of the evening asunder, the bumpety-bumpety-bumpety-bump of more than one T-Rex, in fact, quite a clump. There was a man and a lady and at least 20 babies all scampering round like a flock. Monty looked once and then twice. What a shock! The big daddy dinosaur stopped and he said, "Don't you recognize me? It's your mate, T-Rex Ted." I'm sorry I left, but I couldn't resist her, pointing at his wife. Or it might be a sister. You know he can't see that well during daytime, which is why he was no good at Tig during playtime. That day in the park when I heard Tessa singing, it set my heart racing. It was just like bells ringing. I found her, and we have been family since. She is my princess, and I am her prince. But I need your help with these hundreds of kiddies. They don't know they're not supposed to eat up old biddies. So Monty agreed, and using small hooks he gathered the babies and read to them from his books stories he'd written of adventures they'd had. Soon they were quiet at the tales of their dad, some of them happy, some of them sad, but all of them learnt to be clever, not bad. Now nobody thinks that T-Rexes are fools if they've attended young Monty's schools. He's been so popular with little nippers. His next classes are for those dinos with flippers like the plesiosaurs, which, unlike the rest, are still about, and they live in Loch Ness, where they're called monsters and make good pets. But that's another story.